Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Diabetes Planet. This is episode 3, so this is the going on to 48 hours of a continuous fast, meaning not eating anything other than water, tea, and coffee. And again, the goal and the purpose for me personally, it's multifold, but the main thing is a proof of concept for myself and also a major health endeavor for myself to bring my body fat percentage down from a whopping 38% to hopefully below 20%. And I'm doing that with a 30-day or aiming to do it with a 30-day continuous fast. We'll see if I'll be able to pull it off or not. That's the challenge. So just an update for today. So today, in terms of measurements wise, my weight is now down to 200.8 pounds. So again, I started 2 days ago with 206, so I've lost about 6 pounds. Again, I'm still not too fascinated by this. It's probably at least half of that is just water weight, because as soon as you start fasting, your insulin levels go down, and when your insulin levels go down, your body doesn't absorb or reabsorb as much water and glycogen as well. So the liver, I guess the liver stores sugar in the liver, and also my waist circumference is down. Yesterday it was 104 centimeters. Now it's down to 102 centimeters. So I lost about 2 centimeters there. Again, probably same thing. So still not overly impressed, but it's really nice when you see some progress. And so that's good. It's good to have those numbers. In terms of the topic for today, actually, I'll just update another quick update for today about how the fasting is going personally. So again, usually the second and third day are the hardest days of the fast, and certainly I felt it today. You can feel the waves of hunger coming in and out, but it was really nice. Today I went to two. I actually had, I guess you could say, two invitations or two. I guess I guess settings where there was lots of free food in both, and I was able to resist fairly easily and not give in or feel that I needed to eat, and that was really nice and liberating to have that control. And other than that, they went really well, and no other really big updates. It's been really nice, actually. This is a huge update. It's been really nice to talk to people, who've been watching this YouTube video, comments through Facebook, and through just friends and family talking. It's sort of stirred up more conversations about weight loss, and it's nice to see so many other people who, are, I guess it's not really nice, but um, it's there's something comforting, I guess, in seeing other people having the same struggles that I'm going through right now, and who are sort of frustrated as well with current weight loss methods, and how most of them don't really work. And again, the purpose of this is also to talk a little bit about each day about the different aspects about weight loss and weight gain, and why traditional diets don't work, and why the fasting diet as well as the ketogenic diet may be superior and offer a solution that you probably would not get otherwise. So without further ado, I want to go into the topic for today, the sort of the tidbit topic, and I wanted to talk about a huge myth that unfortunately a lot of us, including myself, has subscribed to, and it's an important myth to address because it's sort of the cornerstone of why most other diets don't work, and why fasting would be a sort of a silver bullet when it comes to losing weight and curing diabetes. So the big myth is that fasting won't really work because it'll put you in a starvation mode, and the minute you start eating after you're done fasting, you're just going to put all that weight back on. So you're really wasting your time by doing a fast like this. It's not sustainable. It's not good for your body, and et cetera, right? So I wanted to address that today and just talk a little bit about why it's totally false and why it's actually the opposite that's true. Um, the main fundamental principle behind why people who say fasting puts you into a starvation mode, the main tenet of it is partly true. So if you look at energy expenditure in a typical day, the main way that we expend energy is through our basal metabolic rate. So that's just energy that's used by our body, by our brain, for the standard biochemical processes that it has to go through to sustain itself, right? So even if I woke up and I just laid in bed all day and didn't do any kind of activity, I would probably still expend about 1,500 to 2,000 calories just in of energy just for my body just to function, to keep my heart beating, to stay alive, etc. So the theory is if you go from eating and taking in energy as part of your normal self. So let's say you took 2,500 calories a day, and then the next day you only took in 1,500 calories. Your body would notice this shift and notice that there's less energy coming in. And of course, it's going to adapt, right? Because if your body's used to burning 25, if your basal metabolic rate dictates that your body, needs 50, let's just say 2,000 calories a day to function, and you start only eating 1,500 calories a day, well, that loss of 500 every single day that you have, if you continued with that every day, you're going to end up starving yourself to death. So your body adapts and is very flexible. So the basal metabolic rate comes down. And that's why it's very true that, again, in like my previous video, a lot of contestants who've gone on shows like The Biggest Loser or who go on these crash diets, they do end up gaining it back. And to be honest, it's really rough when this happens for two reasons. When your metabolism is reduced, because first of all, when your metabolism is reduced and you're expending less energy, you actually feel really lousy and tired because your body's burning less energy. So that's one reason why diets fail, because you start restricting your calories and you start feeling really, really crappy for doing so, and then you just end up wanting to eat again to make yourself feel better, and then you gain, and that's the end of your diet. The second reason that restricting your calories, which is or caloric restriction, which is the typical dietary message for people to lose weight, which doesn't work, is that because you're burning fewer calories per day, because your basal metabolic rate comes down and your body adapts to you eating less, it's that much harder to lose weight, and ultimately you end up gaining it right back, because the next day when you go back to 2,000 calories a day and your body's already adjusted to 1,500, now you're in a surplus. So that's why that's why the fundamental principle is partly true in that your basal metabolic rate does change depending on what you eat, and if you do caloric restriction only, you will gain that weight back, and that's why it's typically hard to sustain. And so that's why people knock fasting as well and say if you fast, the same thing's going to happen. Now the difference is, and the reason why fasting, the reverse is true when you fast, meaning that you'll actually be able to lose weight sustainably and you won't gain it all back, is because these two things, or because what I mentioned before doesn't happen when you're fasting. So if you think about what happens when you're fasting, is so obviously your basal metabolic rate initially does turn down when you eat less, but what also happens is when you're not eating anything, your body versus eating something but calorically restricted, which is the traditional way, when you eat nothing, your body has no choice but to transfer metabolism over to your stored fats, because there's no more sugar left, there's no more glycogen left in your liver, and this turns on a whole different powerhouse. And if you think about it, that's why fat is stored in your body. It's 4 times when there's no food around and your body saves it for a rainy day. But unfortunately, in this day and age, it just stays there and it starts to accumulate because there is no rainy day for most people living, in the West, or now, all over the world. So that it keeps building up, and that's toxic for your body, and that's what ultimately kills you with diabetes, heart attacks, etc. But what happens when you eat nothing is your body starts to switch metabolism to fat burning and fatty acid oxidation. And what that does is it actually, rather than decreasing your metabolic rate, it increases your metabolic rate because you suddenly have a new source that's really rich in energy. As you know, fat has much more energy stored in it than a gram of fat compared to a gram of carbohydrate is much more energy stored in fat. So you have a source of rich energy source coming in when you start fasting that's being released, and that makes your metabolic rate actually go up. So that's why it's easier to lose weight when you're fasting, and that's why you won't necessarily gain it all back if you stop, or when you stop fasting. But obviously, you still want to have a good element of intermittent fasting after you do a continuous fast. So right now, I'm doing continuous fasting because I want a rapid drop in my weight and my fatty acid composition in my my body fat composition. But eventually, I'm gonna that's phase 2 is gonna be switching to a more sustainable intermittent fasting diet where you fast and feast 24 hours, 48 hours, maybe a week, something like that. But depends on what you eat and what you're up for. So that's why this myth is not true. And in fact, I wanted to share a few research studies or some results from research studies, and I'll quote the research studies in the comments so you can actually take a look at them yourself. So in one study, fasting and by the way, where I'm reading from the book The Complete Guide to Fasting, by Jason Fung, but I'm also gonna paste the sources for the references that he posted for these results as well, so you can access them yourself. But essentially, in one study, fasting every other day for 22 days resulted in no measurable decrease in the basal metabolic rate. So there's no starvation mode that happened. In fact, fat oxidation or fat burning increased by 58%, so from 64 grams per day to 101 grams per day, and carbohydrate oxidation decreased 53% from 175 grams per day to 81 grams per day. So basically, this is just telling you that what's happening is your body's switching from carb oxidation to fatty acid oxidation, which is what you want if you're trying to lose weight. In another study, 4 days of continuous fasting, so I'm at 2 days now, so if I continue to fast for 4 days, they noticed an increase in the basal metabolic rate by 12%. So that's quite remarkable. And also levels of the neurotransmitter norepinephrine, also known as noradrenaline, so that's your sort of flight and flight response, or the sort of kick that you get in your metabolism in your body, increased by 117%, and that helped keep energy levels high. And fatty acids in the bloodstream increased over 370% as the body switched over from burning food to burning stored fats. So those are just a quick snapshot of some numbers from some research that was done. Again, I'll give you the articles so you can source them yourself and make that judgment call yourself. So that's it for today. That sort of wanted to bust that myth about fasting decreasing your metabolism and ultimately preventing you from gaining weight. And as I mentioned, it's quite the opposite that's true. First of all, that fasting helps release fats in your body, increase energy expenditure, and increase the basal metabolic rate. So that's number one. Number two, first and foremost, this is why this whole principle of your basal metabolic rate decreasing and having a calorie restricted diet won't work, because no matter how much you restrict your calorie diet, as long your body will accommodate or compensate for that restriction. And as long as you have any amount of carbs coming in, your body's going to continuously use that and shut off the production, the furnace of fat burning in your body. So anytime you eat anything, whether it's a fruit, a vegetable, whatever it is, that will stop. That'll increase your insulin level and prevent your fatty acid oxidation from happening. So that's it for today. Tomorrow, I hope to go through the second biggest myth which is a lot of people have asked me about as well, which is about burning muscle. And that's a big concern for a lot of people. They're worried that if they fast, they're going to lose a lot of muscle mass. And so tomorrow I'm going to talk about why this is also very not true. And in fact, that a lot of people a lot of studies show that when you fast, there's evidence that, I'm not going to say you gain protein or you gain muscle mass, but it certainly maintains your muscle mass. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Hope to see you guys soon. Then, and please subscribe to this channel, the Obesity Planet, if you're interested in seeing more videos on weight loss, diabetes, and fasting.